Welcome to what's supposed to be another webinar with the MedFit Education Foundation. Our presenter today is absent and AWOL. I've been trying to reach her in every way that I know how. But here's what we're going to do. I really feel bad. I know each and every one of you value your time and appreciate you joining us today. Since our topic is the brain benefits of exercise, we're going to go ahead and turn this into a Q&A format because this is an area I've done a ton of work in as well. So this is your chance, I guess, to pick the brain of the Director of Education for MedFit Education Foundation. We can open it up so that you're more than welcome to ask anything that's not directly related to brain fitness. If I don't know the answer, I'll just pass and I'll do my best maybe. But yeah, since we are in the topic of brain fitness, I decided rather than just tell you she's not here and cancel, you're all here. Let's go see if you would like to ask me a question. Anything that you want to know about brain fitness, just type it in the questions panel. Again, I apologize for today, but we're going to try to make this time valuable to you. As some of you may know, I'm the author of our Alzheimer's and Brain Fitness Fitness Specialist course. So this area, I was excited to hear our presenter today because I'm always interested in learning new information. And so let's go ahead and dive in. If you have any questions about brain fitness or fitness in general, I'm happy to take them, and I'll just give it a minute or two for the questions panel to start populating. You may have to rack your brain to think of one, right? Because there's always, you're probably hoping to be entertained with someone else's expertise today, but now you have to be put in a position to ask a question. I was actually curious because Fonetta's presentation was very generally the brain benefits of exercise. I was like, okay, where's she going to go with this? Because there's a lot of different ones you can highlight. But we won't be having her today, it looks like. So I hope she's okay. Let's see. So Eileen is asking, interested to know if there are specific physical activities that help with anxiety. Wow, that's such a fascinating question. So Eileen, here's my answer to that. It's extremely individualized. So for example, some people love going to haunted houses. Other people find them terrifying, like legitimately terrifying, not just play terrifying. Other people love roller coasters while others hate them. And in general, physical activity can help with anxiety because it gives us an outlet for the machinery in us that's the fight or flight response, which is essentially gearing us up for a big production of physical activity when we need it. And the interesting thing about that is we live in a modern world that presents us with only long-term non-physical threats. But our brain is wired to respond to short-term physical threats. So when we're experiencing anxiety, what we're experiencing is fear or a threat sensation. Now, the threat may be of a psychological nature. It may be of a physical nature. It may be not even real. It may be just imagined. So if it's imagined, then whatever the user, the individual we're dealing with, the participant in physical activity, whatever types of physical activity that person finds to be useful in alleviating anxiety and or not triggering anxiety would be the way to go. So in general, yes, physical activity can help with managing anxiety. However, we cannot blanket recommend specific forms of physical activity that will help with anxiety, because if we use the sort of the standard answer that the public thinks of as like yoga, tai chi, and Pilates, or something that's supposed to be mind-body related, even though all fitness is mind-body related technically, some people find that terrifying because they don't want to look like the one person that doesn't know what they're doing and it's new and uncertain. So not everyone's going to find anxiety relief in that. So that I think it's best to find out what the individual feels is less threatening as far as physical activity. I wish I could give you a specific answer that was going to apply to everyone, but I can't. It's actually very individualized. So the more you get to know about the person you're trying to help, that will be much more useful. Okay, next question is from Lena. She said she's completed the Alzheimer's course. She wants to know what the Funtensity course is about and if I can get ideas to use in my classes. Okay, so that some of you may also know, prior to COVID, I had a program that I was launching around the world, and it was actually going really well. It's called Funtensity, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's fun plus intensity and exercise. And it's built on a foundation of brain science. And I was teaching one-day workshops to teach fitness professionals, and also launching it in clubs that then could use the Funtensity name and logo to begin teaching classes in their respective gyms and studios. It's a partner-based program, so as you can imagine, COVID brought me to a screeching halt, and I pivoted to do the Alzheimer's and brain fitness course. And then, so since then, I haven't been relaunching the one-day workshops. It's very difficult when you're not in front of people regularly, as far as being out on the road, traveling, and at conferences. So I've been pivoting, I guess, a little bit to just working a lot more locally where I am. So I'll say, if you want ideas that are based on the Funtensity concepts to use, there is on the Funtensity website. If you go to funtensity.com, I'm not saying I won't relaunch the one-day workshops, but it's just not currently offered anywhere. That said, Lena, if you have a group enough of trainers that's big enough and that makes it worthwhile for me to come, we can discuss that. It looks like you're in Canada based on your email address. I actually did launch it in Canada in late 2019. But you can follow Funtensity on social media. Just go to @Funtensity. There's a lot of videos on there. I've been posting a little bit less recently, but just been too busy with other things. There's also a lot of good information on YouTube. If you just search Funtensity, I have a Funtensity channel, but I also was putting a lot of things on there on my own YouTube channel. So if you do a search on that keyword in Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, you'll find a lot of content, a lot of exercise ideas that you can use. And there's a lot of stuff out there. And I'm happy to also help you with any ideas you want as well. But also on the Funtensity website, you go to funtensity.com, and there's a menu at the top. It's called See It, and which is really podcast interviews or videos. And I actually, I had a videographer record with a 360-degree camera, so you can actually swipe and look all the way around the room. The camera's in the middle of the circuit workout I was doing. You can actually watch an entire workout, and you can also watch a couple of games that we play to typically conclude the workout, because I always believe in having a fun experience where you have a workout, but then you end on a high note by having a game that we play. So everybody, whether you win or lose, it's more about competition with people. So you have a team, you're part of a team, rather than whether you win or lose. So many people find it like a big high to leave that on. So I found that to be a valuable strategy as well. But you can actually watch an entire workout, and you can just scroll through it to see different exercises. But yeah, there's a 360-degree video you can see. So I would point you to that resource as well. And you can just reach me at jonathan@funtensity.com for any specific questions that you have about that. I mean, yeah, hopefully I'll maybe be able to get things rolling again. But COVID put up a big wall for me, and I just decided to go in a different direction. Okay, wow, there's a lot more questions in there. All right, so Natalie is asking, what relationships do you know between exercise and neuroplasticity? What particular types of exercise routines seem to be optimal for this? Okay, so Natalie, to answer your question, the relationship between exercise and neuroplasticity is essentially that anytime we're doing something new, we're having a new experience, our brain starts to pay attention to, I don't know how to do this, so I better figure it out quickly. Now, if we don't repeat that activity, we don't get the learning. So we have neuroplasticity occurring anytime we're experiencing something new. If we repeat it often enough, we get an establishment of that. So then what happens is the neuroplasticity begins to go away as we develop the skill, which is exactly what our brains are supposed to do. We experience something new, it goes, whoa, this is new, I better pay extra attention. Once we've repeated it enough, and that's the key, is we have to have the repetition to build in the permanent change to the brain to learn that skill and learn it well and be good at it. And then we can move on to something else. So what this means is that anytime we want to have a neuroplastic effect, we have to have some novelty. That means we can even tweak an existing exercise that causes the brain to pay attention a little bit more if we make things a little bit different. So there's changing an exercise completely, going from one exercise to something that's new, but then there's tweaking an exercise. There's, I'll start with a dumbbell squat, for example. If you started with a dumbbell squat and you just held the dumbbells at your sides, well then you can do, and this is on the Funtensity social media somewhere too, it's shifting dumbbell squat, where I would reach one dumbbell down between your knees and the other one is on the outside of one of your knees. You come up and then you would rotate the shoulders to the other side. So now you have the dumbbells going to the opposite configuration, where the other one is between your knees and the other one is outside your knees. And then you can change the dumbbells where you're carrying one high and one low. You can kind of mix it up. So now we've got one movement we're learning where it's a squat, but then we're tweaking it a little bit so that there's some newness to it, so the person is forced to pay attention a little bit more. So what this does for the participant is it means they don't have to go, oh gosh, I have to learn an entirely brand new exercise. We just tweak it. So then we have a little adjustments, and it makes them pay attention a little bit more. Not that they're not paying attention, but it makes the brain subconsciously pay a little bit more attention to the cognitive thinking through how to do the aspects of the movement, because it feels new, and it makes the brain pay more attention. So I hope that's helpful. And let's see, Jennifer. Oh, hey, Jennifer Berryhill. She says, I'm giving a brain health presentation tomorrow to a group of residents at a retirement community in Thousand Oaks, California. Do you have some thoughts on the newest research on exercise and how to best communicate with this population in a constructive and helpful way without overwhelming scientific data? Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Based on your experience with Alzheimer's fitness, what would you emphasize given what we know in 2026? Okay, I'll say two things here that should be helpful to you, in that there's a lot of focus on brain games for especially an already older population who's keenly focused on concerns with brain health and maintaining it in brain fitness. What we can do with this is that we can get them to understand that our brains are designed to solve problems in an unpredictable, ever-changing physical environment while we're moving. And those problems are directly related to survival. We're not in that environment anymore. We live in a modern world where we have mostly, the problems we solve are mostly mental in nature. And so what you'll typically experience is an audience, they want to know if playing Sudoku and crossword puzzles and playing computerized brain games are going to help them. And you may already know this because I know you've completed a lot of brain health education, but they don't do as much good as people think on their own. They are helpful, but only minimally so. When we combine exercise or physical activity in general, doesn't have to be even as strenuous as exercise. When we combine physical activity with a cognitive challenge, now we have the amplification of the benefits of either. So if we do some sort of sitting still, not moving at all cognitive challenge, this is how I would explain it to them. You can sit still and play a brain game, then go for a walk, or you can play a brain game while you're going for a walk. And the benefit of that is like 1 + 1 = 3. It becomes this magnified effect where if you're just doing the cognitive challenge by itself, you get some benefit. If you're just doing physical activity by itself, you're getting some benefit. And we know the benefits of walking, but we also know, we see people going for a walk and they're looking at their phone the whole time. And not because they're playing a brain game, most likely. So what you can do, something really simple, is have people step on the seams, walk on the crack. You look at clouds, pretend you can imagine what shapes you see in the clouds, just like a kid. You count the number of animals that you see if you're going for a walk. I'm using really simple strategies that don't have anything to do with exercise yet for a reason. So you can give these people useful information without the intimidation of the quote unquote intimidation of exercise. You can count, they can count how many certain colors or make and model of a car that they see. They can, really anything, just we're asking them to kind of pay attention to their environment and record something that they're seeing. It can be relevant to the person. If someone's not into cars, then maybe don't use that. If they're into birds, then they don't even have to know the species, just maybe count the different species of birds that they see. And then in exercise, you can use a number of strategies. I know you took my course, so we're using different visual and auditory stimuli. Like I can call out a number to help to have someone lunge to the right or left, or to do a bicep curl, even something really basic with the left or right arm. I'm trying to keep it really general to you. So that's the one thing I'll say. And then the other thing I'll say is that I'm very passionate about this one. I think we as a society are overdoing it on tech. And I'm not anti-tech. I just feel like we're majoring in the minors, meaning if we're not doing the fundamentals well, there's no point in playing brain games or using any of the devices you can strap to your head to change brain waves or change a visual input. No point using any of that stuff if you're not getting good sleep, you're not having strong, vibrant social life. You're not having good nutrition, regular physical activity, and stress management. And so if you're not doing those things, then don't bother with the other stuff. And specifically when it comes to exercise, what's infuriating for me right now, only because I really believe I got into this industry to make exercise accessible to as many humans as possible. And I don't believe it should be limited by income. We have the proliferation of boutique fitness studios, which are never going to be a solution for the masses because they're upwards of $100 or more for a monthly membership. And I have no problem with the existence of them in theory, but they're never going to be a solution that helps everyone because they can only exist in high population density areas where the demographics are such that they can support enough people that can afford it. And someone took all the stuff that's in a big gym and they broke it off into separate places. That's $100 to get each one. So instead of having $100 a month membership to get all of it, you have to have $100 a month to have a spin class, to have a yoga class, to have a circuit style class. And it's happening with brain fitness. I'm not going to name the name because I don't want to give it any more publicity, but there's a chain of boutique fitness studios centered around brain fitness, which is a terrible idea, only because they are using only a lot of high-tech stuff in it. And I love the high-tech stuff. I have some. I have pods that light up. The ones I have are called ROX, R-O-X. There's also a company called Blaze Pod. They're great as well. I don't own those, but I've used them. They're great. That's fine, but it's not, I don't use that with everyone. I don't tell people they have to go buy that when they're doing brain fitness. You don't need high-tech to do brain fitness. We should give people low-tech options. And then if they're interested, introduce the high-tech options. But these brain fitness studios are centered around all high-tech solutions, which means they're going to be overly expensive and only people that can afford it can go into it. So the takeaway for your talk tomorrow would be figure out ways to integrate cognitive challenge with your physical activity. When you do both at the same time, you amplify the benefits of whatever you're doing, whether it's going for a walk or if it's exercising itself. And then look for solutions that are really cheap and easy. Take a tennis ball, write some numbers on it. Just take you could take a big like kickball size. If any of those people you're talking to tomorrow have grandkids, you can even take a balloon and write letters on it. And if they're with their grandkids, they can smack around a balloon or catch it. And whenever they catch it, whatever letter is facing them, they just think of the first word that comes to mind. There's something I taught one of my brain fitness clients that we did over the holidays, and this was so powerful. And this is something you can use. I like to try to give you some specific things too. We did a movement where I had him pick a word that began with the letter A for this arm, B for this arm, and C for this leg, and D for this leg. And what he would do, he would stand up and he would kind of raise that arm or leg based on what I called out after squatting. We did squat and then we would raise an arm or leg. Well, I started with A, B, C, D, but then I had him pick a word and then we kind of kept using the same word. He's an early Alzheimer's patient, so he's got some short-term memory issues. So I was using it session after session. Well, this was the week before Thanksgiving. What he did was when his family came into town, because I told him, I said, I want him to use this with his wife. I wanted him to share the 4 words. I told her what they were. And what was going to happen is they were going to integrate this with their life, where at any moment during the day, they're both in the house, she or he could call out any one of the 4 words that began with A, B, C, or D. And if they heard that, they had to put that arm up. Can be any time of day. You're not in the middle of exercise, just stand in the kitchen. You just had to do it. So his grandkids come for Thanksgiving week, and he was playing that game with the grandkids, and they got into it. They went on a hike together as a family, and the kids were calling out the different words while they were on the hike together. So how cool is that, that you can kind of weave this into everyday life, but it's still a brain fitness activity, and so we're getting a positive social experience. We're getting cognitive fitness integrated with physical activity, and it's all kind of seamless, but it also is built on a foundation of fun and playfulness. So I hope that specific example was kind of helpful for you. Thanks, Jennifer, for that. So we're going to go back into questions panel. What are simple exercises to access brain health? So Renina, did you mean assess or access? I'm going to let you type that in because I just want to be clear about what you're actually asking there. Okay, so Roger, I have a 13-year-old grandson recovering from a brain bleed issue and is currently working 5 days a week at the Center for Neuroskills in Irving, Texas. Any nutrition guidelines you could recommend? Wow, I won't say I have clear recommendations for healing from a brain bleed. I just know that when our body's dealing with any insult, any trauma, I mean, physical trauma, whether it's tissue damage, whether it's in the brain or elsewhere, we need really high quality nutrition, and we need enough of it. So we need to kind of make sure that sometimes when we're dealing with recovery from a major injury, there's a lack of interest in food, but the body still needs it, and we have to, of course, steer clear of low nutrient value foods, because the body needs raw materials, especially, or high quality raw materials, especially when healing from any kind of injury. So I don't have any specific information for you on any very detailed specific nutrition, but I know a 13-year-old, it can be very difficult to make sure that the quality nutrition is high. So I wouldn't worry so much about eating specific foods. Just make sure we're prioritizing nutrition that will support healing versus things that are going to be more processed and junk food based, subject to his ability to kind of, not have that stuff. So I don't know what his nutrition is currently like. So sorry, I don't have any more detailed information for you on any specific foods that may help him, but I do hope his recovery goes well, and I'm sorry to hear that he had that. Okay, so Roger, yeah, it's tough stuff when people that we love have those kind of situations. Michael, now this is a good question. Michael asked me, how do you spell funtensity? Can't find it in the search. You actually spelled it right when typing the question. It's FUNTENSITY. So you can just go to funtensity.com. I've used that hashtag a bunch for the stuff that I've posted, so it should be fairly easy to find, and it's fairly unique. So you shouldn't find a whole lot of other stuff that's not related to it. But you spelled it right when you typed the question, so you're on the right track. Let's see. Oh, now he says he found it. Okay. Oh, Jennifer, thank you. She just said incredible information. Thanks for your insights. Love these ideas. Yeah, I was trying to start general, but then give you some specific stuff that you can use. Let's see, Linda. So what about practicing presence and curiosity when moving? Oh, I love that. Is this what you're encouraging? I didn't give it that label. So Linda's saying, what about practicing presence and curiosity when moving? Presence is just being fully present, and curiosity is exactly what it sounds like. It's staying curious about your physical environment. It does not have to be too contrived, absolutely, but some people like to have their direction or their attention focused for them, and that can be a lot more helpful for them than other people. Yeah, if you can really just get someone to be curious about their environment, I think that's, I don't remember who it was, but it's been many years ago now. Someone was talking about aging, and one of the keys to aging, and I've thought about this a lot over the years, especially as we're all aging, right? Everybody is only aging in one direction. You think about staying curious. There's a certain curiosity you have. Think about a kid going for a walk. They're always touching everything on the ground. They're picking up stuff, maybe even if you think they shouldn't because it's dirty or whatever. But they're picking up rocks. They're kicking stones. They're throwing sticks. They're poking things with a stick that they pick up. And there's a curiosity with it all. There's a learning. There's a tactile discovery sense, and what things feel like, how heavy they are when I pick them up. A young brain has to learn all these things to survive in the world physically. So we have this curiosity that just is sort of moment to moment and integrated with our physical experience as we go about the world. And if we can bring that back into our everyday life, instead of having every unoccupied moment where we reach for our phone and check in on things, we just kind of stare at the trees and see how the leaves are blowing in the breeze, or just even listen to it. It doesn't have to be contrived, just staying fully present. And the thing that I always find interesting is if you think about times when you remember something important or you're problem solving, this is not just for you, Linda, this is for anyone. I've always been fascinated by this. And when I started studying the brain, I discovered what's going on. Like you're in the shower and you get like this great idea, and then you don't have anything to write it with and you forget it, but you start thinking, oh, I remember I've got to call so-and-so and do this, that, and the other. So you get this experience that's very, like your brain's like catching up on stuff. And that's exactly what's happening, because when you're no longer constantly reacting to the visual, auditory stimuli of modern life, you get this opportunity to have your brain background process on things, and you get these inspired moments. And if you just stay present and a little bit curious about your surroundings, that you can get that. So yeah, thanks, Linda, for sort of observing that what I was saying was really also, if you give it a term, it would be staying present and staying curious about the world. Okay. So Jimmy, can the same theoretical framework be applied to exercise, brain health for substance use disorder? I'm not sure what framework you're asking about, Jimmy, so I'm going to wait, see if you drop a follow-up question in there, and I'll check it. Okay, so Renita was asking for assessments. Okay, so back to your original question, just to make sure. Simple exercises to assess brain health. I would say it's not really appropriate for us to do that as fitness professionals. By the time you can just come up with memory games for people, you don't have to necessarily view it as an assessment, because it's exceedingly difficult to draw any meaningful conclusions from brain health assessments, even for clinical researchers. Typically, they can't even use one diagnostic. They have to put people through a battery of tests, and it creates a picture of what may or may not be some potential problems. And so in our realm, it's probably difficult to impossible and not even potentially appropriate within scope of practice to try to assess brain health. But what I will tell you is this, in a useful way. I know I've hit the sweet spot with someone when they're making occasional mistakes, if I'm giving them some kind of cognitive challenge. For example, if I just made a rule where we said we're going to squat, and when I call out an even or odd number, we're going to put out your left or your right arm. You're essentially going to do a lateral raise as you get to the top of a squat. So if I said, to make it easy, we said, forget the number, we're going to alternate. We're going to go left and right. Every time you squat, you're going to do a left and right. Most people would have no problem with that. Most cognitively healthy people would have no problem with that. Then I could say, we're going to make it a little bit harder. We're going to have you do 4 on the right arm, and then 4 on the left arm, then 3 on the right arm, and then 3 on the left arm. So you're essentially counting down the reps. Now they have to use short-term memory and their cognitive ability to do 4 on each arm, 3 on each arm, 2 on each arm, 1 on each arm. If they do well with that, then we could go to the next layer of complexity, where I could even do countdowns where we're skipping numbers. We do 5 reps each side, 3, and then 1. So it gets a little more complicated because you're not going in order on the numbers. Then we could introduce a further layer of complexity, like I said, where any odd number would be with the right arm, any even number would be with the left arm. So then you're looking at, from there, you'd be going for keeping it simple at first, calling out simple numbers, something between like 1 and 20 basically, and then you can go 1,642. You can even use negative numbers, because it doesn't matter positive or negative, even an odd rule still apply. Then you can do another layer of complexity. You could use small math formulas, simple addition and subtraction, 2 + 2, 6 - 3, that kind of stuff. You could then add a different layer of complexity where you are naming perhaps the name of a musical artist to lift one arm, and then you're naming the name of a TV show, just any TV show, any musical artist, so very broad categories. You could use country names for one arm, and then foods for another arm, that kind of stuff. You're going to start to see a breakdown, or someone will slow down more likely than they'll make mistakes, but they'll still make some mistakes. So why I went through all that with you is that for a single individual, you can assess where they begin to break down in their ability to cognitively track the different challenges you're trying to integrate with your physical fitness. And then what you can do is use that as your foundation for that individual, because an assessment as an objective standard is not something that we should really even be doing, but an assessment on an individual level from person to person, you're comparing a future version of that person with the current version of that person that you're experiencing on that day. That is something we can definitely measure, because now we're just using a data point of 1 and we're measuring that person's individual response to different strategies that we use. Okay. So Linda, how do we use presence and curiosity? How can we intrigue people about this approach? Just mirror it. That's a pretty significant question there. This is very hard to answer in general. It's very easy to answer in the specifics. So I can have, for example, let me give you an example. See, when you have one person you're dealing with, a lot of these questions get super easy to answer because now I know what someone's into. So one guy I was working with, his favorite sport is football. So I had him, while he was exercising, I had him, I set 1 minute on the clock and he had to kind of give me a football play, and he had to physically act out as many of the players' jobs as he could. In other words, like if you're not familiar with American football, it's the center has to snap the ball to the quarterback. So he was playing the role of center, and I had him sort of say the name of the position. So center snaps the ball, then he would go back, the quarterback drops back to pass. He has to dodge a defensive back or a defensive end who's trying to tackle him before he can throw the ball. Then he throws the ball to a wide receiver or tight end. So he has to say the name of the position, but also act out the physical action. So he was trying to do this. I was trying to give him as many different players' positions on the field in that sport to identify as possible. Now, this keeps him present because I could say something like, let's do a squat and let's do this back and forth running movement like a quarterback and let's throw a ball. But now when I make it specific to something he cares about and he's really into, like American football, now we have something that he'll stay more present in. And he's not going to be doing a squat while thinking about the phone call he has to make to his daughter's school to organize a parent-teacher conference while he's in the middle of exercising. So I hope that takes a stab at being a little more specifically helpful. This stuff is super easy to do with a real person. Like if you brought your client into here and you could ask them this stuff, it'd be super easy for me to answer these questions because it's just so difficult to just generalize things for a large population. Oh, thanks. Jennifer's just reiterating. I know Jennifer's done a lot of brain fitness too, so she's just sort of reiterating that I mentioned the sweet spot of when you start to notice mistakes. That's a really important idea in her opinion. So what you're looking for there is, I always kind of joke with people, you want to get like an A- or a B+. You want around 90%, maybe a little bit plus or minus 5% success rate. You want occasional mistakes because that means, hey, there's something I didn't do well, but I'm doing it well enough that I'm motivated to continue. Let's see. Linda, thank you. Now I know why you came up with Funtensity. Yeah, actually, the story behind that's pretty funny. I used to work for a company called Spry. Most of you probably heard of it if you've been in the fitness industry for a while. And if you haven't heard of them in a while, they stopped doing, after 2016, in 2016, they were acquired by a much larger company who had no longer any interest in having the big expense of having a real presence at fitness conferences to support product sales. So our speaker team for Spry was sort of squashed at the end of 2016. But during the 3 years I was working with them, we were put in position to sort of use the things that we were excited about as presenters to create content and sessions for that would use their product. And so that I actually love their model of just letting us do what we're educated and passionate about and creating content around it. And as part of that, I came up with a session called Plyo Play, which was essentially plyometric play. And I was trying to capture the spirit of, hopping over a fence and climbing a tree and whatever else you did as kids when we used to play plyometrically. And so I was teaching that, and I don't know, somewhere in the middle of the year or two, I was delivering the Plyo Play presentation. I was talking, I said, it's fun plus intensity. It's like Funtensity. And as soon as I said that, hair on the back of my neck stood up. I got really excited and I knew I had a kind of a winner turn. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but then 2017, I launched Funtensity. And then by 2020, I hit a brick wall. So let's see. Roger, lost my connection for a few minutes. I'm not sure if my question about nutrition tips for a 13-year-old recovering from a brain bleed issue has already been addressed. Yeah, if you didn't hear me, I didn't have anything specific to tell you, just he needs really quality nutrition. He needs good nutrition because anytime we have, dogs are going crazy. All right, hang on one second. There's dogs staying curious with his environment. So yeah, anytime we're dealing with tissue injury healing, we need high quality nutrition, even if sometimes that healing means we don't always feel like eating. Sometimes we just don't have the desire for food. We super need to have high quality nutrition because the body needs good raw materials. And so it's super important. I know that can be difficult with a 13-year-old, but I hope it goes well, and I wish him all the best. And certainly, Roger, good on you for trying to support him in that as well. Okay, so Renina, thank you. Work with dementia and Parkinson's patients. It is always great to switch it up. Oh, fantastic, Renina. I'm really happy to hear that you're doing work with that population. Really valuable. They need us, but they also benefit greatly from what we do. Arguably more than almost any other professional, because these are massively lifestyle related diseases. They're not mostly genetically mediated diseases. They're mostly lifestyle, sort of in physical environment related diseases. Hang on, I'm gonna go get him a little under control. All right, buddy. Okay. Daddy's working. All right. Most unorthodox webinar ever, but this can be good too because we get the chance to share. Okay. So Linda's asking, thanks. Sounds like this is most effective in one-on-one training. How would one challenge a group? As I lead a group right now, love offerings, circuits, and gamification variety. There's actually lots of ways to do some of this stuff in a group. You can have, instead of people partnering with each other, you can be their partner where you're leading and they're facilitating. And just so you're maybe giving verbal or visual cues and everybody's following you, and you're coming up with different things, like, for example, or that ABCD exercise I gave you earlier. And what's interesting with that one is a few weeks after doing that, I tried to get him to go to the next letters that we did, E, F, G, H. He struggled with that a little bit more because it's not the first 4 letters of the alphabet. So you can see different levels of challenge that people have when you kind of make something that's less common, because everybody talks about your ABCs all the time. And so in a group setting, though, there's lots of things you can do. You can have different games where you make up a game. There's one that I've done before. See, Linda, I think this might be on the Fun 10 City website. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember if I put it in the Alzheimer's and Brain Fitness course, but I'm pretty sure it's on social media. If you have rings, or you have something that you can create a grid, and I know you probably thought I'm crazy because I said rings in a grid, but if you have those plastic rings, you can use it to make essentially 9 spaces. Or what I have is a bunch of like Velcro squares, and I put them together to make a tic-tac-toe grid. And I have 2 teams. We have kettlebells for one group. We use dumbbells for the other group. It's a relay race. We have 2 teams. Everybody runs to put their first game piece out. Usually I'll use like a 10-pound, 20-pound, and 30-pound dumbbell and kettlebell. And there's 3 game pieces each side. Now, the difference between this and regular tic-tac-toe is that once all 3 game pieces are out, so that if we kind of run and each team puts out their 10-pound piece, then they come back, tag, and partner comes out and places the 20-pound piece. And then by the time we're getting the 3rd piece out, we now have an opportunity to block the other team. So you're going to put your piece down, you come back and tag the next person. Well, the next person has to move one of the existing pieces. So unlike regular tic-tac-toe, where once a square is filled in, then it's filled in permanently. Here the game pieces move, so you have to understand where you want to move your piece, but you also have to understand the implication of vacating the space that your piece currently occupies. And it's super fun, and it can get challenging, and everybody seems to love it. But then you're carrying heavier weights. You could use even heavier weights if people are more fit, but then you're also making sure it's appropriate for the population. So you could even do it with lighter weights. You could do it with 3, 5, and 8-pound dumbbells, something like that. But there's a lot of ways to do it in groups. I think it's just some of it is not having to follow a specific program. Almost makes it harder until you start doing it. Once you do it a little bit, then the ideas start generating themselves. Let's see. So Jimmy's back. Sounds like brain fitness games could help people experiencing cognitive decline from substance use. For sure, because what you're doing is, so fitness in general improves people's moods. We know this. It gives them a better outlook on things. It can certainly distract someone from substance abuse. It's not going to be enough by itself to cure someone, and that's too big of a bucket for me to jump in and pretend like I have expertise in it. However, I know that when we create a different emotional response around physical activity for people, if exercise doesn't feel like a chore, even though if they do a traditional workout where they're grabbing dumbbells and looking in a mirror and following, 3 sets of 10 and whatever, it's fine. They're going to feel better at the end of it. Their mood's going to be better. Their mindset's going to be better. They might feel a little more hopeful about their ability to tackle a challenge. That's probably the biggest benefit of physical activity in general, is the sense of expansiveness and hope that it gives us about being able to tackle the challenges that we are facing. But specifically, if we include enough fun cognitive fitness that's relevant to the individual, like maybe call out letters in sequence and give them an opportunity to name favorite bands or favorite TV shows or favorite movies, or even if it's just favorite comic book characters. I mean, who knows what categories to use for each person to make it relevant to them. But if it's something they care about, now they're in an even better mood at the end of it, and they've had some laughs, they feel a little more positive. It just gives you that extra little layer of benefit that we can get by making it personally relevant to that individual. And so yeah, it'd be pretty interesting to hear maybe from you in the future if you're doing some of that with someone that because it seems like you might be working with people with substance abuse. And so Linda says, chess, anyone? Yeah, chess. I don't know that you could use chess in a game with a bunch of people. You could. Those giant pieces you see sometimes at a park where everything's moving around. Okay, that brings us to the end of the questions panel. I'm going to give it another moment or two, see if anybody has any more to drop them in there. Well, this is an example of making lemonade out of lemons, I guess. I was kind of like getting to be 10 minutes on. I'm calling and emailing, trying to reach out to our presenter for today, and she didn't show. But given that our topic was brain fitness, I was fairly confident I'd be able to make this time useful to you all. I hope it was. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Looks like we've got, wow, looks like everybody that signed up, or everybody that was signed on initially, stayed logged in. So I appreciate you hanging with me and being flexible. And I hope you got one or two things that you might find useful. And hey, it was kind of fun for me to get to spend some time with you. Usually I'm hosting these things and I kind of talk for a minute and get out of the way and let the other presenter carry on. Don't know if I'm actually going to have time to prepare a webinar for this year because I'm doing a lot of other projects. So thank you all once again. I really appreciate your time and expertise and just being so gracious in terms of understanding what happened today. And thanks for your engagement and asking good questions, and hope it was useful to you.